Welcome back to another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and in this video we're going to be sifting through some of the nonsense, some of the mess in regards to the balancing of the category leads in Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you are new, please consider subscribing and leave a like. Hashtag Krillnet in the comments if you make it to the end of the video. But let's go ahead and kind of talk about it here. So a lot has been kind of made of the way that this game is balancing itself, and I will say that there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of balancing anyway. I felt like for a long time, you know, for example, like in the 120s, I felt like for a long time these units and these teams just hit way too hard for these events at this point. The events would be challenging for like 70% teams when we get 120% leaders, so of course they're really transcended in that regard, and it's kind of like at a point where everything just one-shots everything. So then we, from there, move on to a scenario where we make the leader scales even bigger and improve on damage output. Now, I'm not going to talk about the potential system, because I think the potential system is probably the biggest issue in regards to all that, because the ability to give some of these units plus 5,000 more attack, and then they have their 120% passives and 150% passives, all this other really high stuff. And then the leader skills 120, 150. In Gohan's case, 130% attack up. It gets really outlandish. I'm not going to really go into that aspect of it, because I could really run this conversation for about 20 minutes if I did all that. But nonetheless, as far as these new category leads go, they're not really in particularly optimized to be run against these events, because I feel like to an extent the developers of the game are still concerned about these events being beatable by 70% teams, 120% teams specifically. So of course, to kind of match up to the 120, that's why they're making the difficulty of those events that way. If they were to make it a little bit harder, increase the life bars and stuff, then the bottom percentage of players, the new players, whatever, are not able to beat the event. So they have to kind of balance it in that regard. But among the three category leads, Gohan, Omega, and Gogeta, there does seem to be a bit of balancing. Now, Omega and Gogeta, right, their teams innately say, okay, for this category, Omega Shadow Dragon Arc and Gogeta the Fusion Dance category, and if you're like a global player or whatever, you don't know what this is, they're basically pockets of units. Categories are pockets of units that are specifically in a group that basically the leader skill applies to. Simply put, the category system is a little bit different. That's a luck mechanic. There's a distinct difference between categories and category system. It's funny when you talk about it in leader skills, in respect to leader skills and the actual category stuff. But that's pretty much what it breaks down as. But those guys, Omega and SS4 Gogeta, offer 150% up and 3 key to their respective categories. Gohan goes out of his way to buff attack by 130, and I think HP and defense by 170%. So what you have is, you have a nice dichotomy because the three teams are pretty well balanced. I think Fusions winds up being the hardest hitting team in the game on the merit of Intelligence Gogeta's ability to be super effective in most cases, and of course SS4 Gogeta having the strongest counter in the game. So that's pretty much why they wind up being the hardest hitting team. And then the Gohan team winds up barely out damaging the Shadow Dragon team the last time I looked at the calculations, and that was with them having LR Trunks and LR Gohan on the team. They're all pretty much relatively close in damage though, so I will say that there's a bit of a drop-off, and by a bit I mean probably a substantial drop-off from the other two teams, Omega and Gogeta team, and the Gohan team. So when you talk about the Gohan team, the problem with that team is it is the only one of the three that is actually dependent, hear me, dependent on having other top tier units, because it's a very shallow, but at the same time very wide range of units, but a very shallow pool of top tier potential units, to the point where you have to really run the LR Trunks and the LR Gohan to really make that team shine. Of course, everything can go on Gohan's back. Gohan is that good of a unit, right? That team will be usable. That team will be incredible. It'll be probably the most tanky team in the game. It'll be, for a while, depending on whatever comes next, of course, right? New events, new leaders, and such. So, of course, take that with a grain of salt. They'll be incredibly good. But there is going to be a drop-off if you don't have those cards. That team is such a narrow team that they had to go out of their way to make them get a little bit more HP and a lot more defense, because Gohan collectively, dual Gohan leads and Gohan's passive, which gives 50% defense, That's a collective 440% defense up, okay? That is a lot of defense to your units. That's ridiculous, right? So any unit you throw on that team is going to be very good defensively. And of course, you're going to have a grip of HP, 350,000 minimum, just based on the leader skill. And one other thing that happens with that team is the Fusion team specifically doesn't have this issue, but the Shadow Dragon team is not too bad in this regard either. But the Gohan team, once again, is dependent on having Trunks and LR Gohan because of the fact that they lack a lot of ki. So Gohan's leader, I was really hoping they wouldn't do this, but this is once again an attempt at balancing STR Gohan as a unit and his team, because he's just freaking incredibly good individually defensively. I don't know how they came to make him that good defensively, and I'm not trying to like oversell it, but the guy is a Janemba unit, able to block everything, albeit only 25% of the time, but he gives everybody 50% more defense. That's the highest, that's Kid Buu intelligence, or no, excuse me, physical Kid Buu level of a buff. And that's why physical Kid Buu's passive is one of the best ones in the game, period, regardless of the restriction it has. Because 50% is so significant, and then on top of that, the leader skill and double Gohans, etc., right? So that's an attempt at them trying to balance him. And what they did is they basically made Gohan heavily restricted, if you truly think about it, because another thing that the other two guys have over Gohan as a leader is they are a lot less restrictive in the terms that they can sit there and run physical units and tech units on their team. Gohan can't do that. Of course, let me go ahead and rephrase that so people don't misunderstand. Those guys, Omega and SS4 Gogeta, have secondary leader skills that say, okay, 3 ki to physical types or tech types if you're Gogeta, and 50% to all stats, to the point where you don't have to run somebody in the category. Gohan's leader skill will only apply to units that have the category. He has no secondary leader skill that would allow you to run any STR unit. If he did, right, SS4 Goku would be on that team, for example. It wouldn't be that big of a deal, you know? And that's another reason why they did that. You understand? Because SS4 Gogeta, or excuse me, Goku, has shocking speed. He'd be perfectly fine. So if you look at it, without the LRs on Gohan's team, regardless of the fact he's going to be incredibly good longevity-wise, have a credible amount of HP, defense, and all that, hit relatively hard because Gohan has the Kaioken mechanic. He can literally carry you by himself. He's made to do it. Okay? He's made to be in drawn-out events because they factored in the fact that your team's going to be crap if you don't have the LR cards. And let's be completely honest, only a minority of players will have both of those guys. But his team doesn't link well. The next best unit on the team is the physical Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. And then the next one after that is probably physical Super Saiyan 1 Gotenks. And those two link fine, fused fighter and stuff. But Gohan's going to struggle for ki in that regard. He's going to start off at 6 ki. You're going to have to run a lot of support. Maybe Broadpan becomes a very good option on a team like that. So you have to go out of your way to kind of compensate, is my point. Whereas if you have the Trunks and the Gohan, you don't have to do that as much because they all have shocking speed, and LR Gohan is the most self-sufficient unit in the game, so on and so forth. And then, of course, the Fusion team and then Omega's team, they're just well built. You know, that's pretty much what it comes down to. So you look at it, you could kind of see them blurring the lines as to why they balance it a certain way. Of course, the Shadow Dragon Arc team could have incorporated Goku if they truly wanted to. You get a little nitpicky and say, okay, well, Goku, I think his art and things like that are from the Baby Saga, so that's why, yada, yada. You can make little excuses, but the reality is there will come a time where they probably will make a new Goku, and he'll have that category because it makes sense. He participated in that category. For example, Majub has the category, but he debuted in a different arc. You see what I'm saying? So it makes sense, but that was just an attempt at them saying, hey, we don't want a team that has Omega, SS4 Vegeta, SS4 Goku, and a few other really good options on this team. It would be too good. And then you look at the Fusion team, they could have made it all-encompassing, but no, they make it Fusion Dance specific, which heavily limits it again because you can't run the Vegetos and the Vegito Blues. And that's ways that they're trying to balance it, albeit take it with a grain of salt. Once again, all these teams, one-turn events optimally, right? You know, or two-turn at worst. So it doesn't really matter. But I don't know. I don't want to make it seem like I've oversold Gohan as a leader lately because he's my favorite card and my favorite unit, my favorite character in Dragon Ball. but that's just kind of the reality of it. So anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Like I said, I could have carried this for another 15 minutes if I incorporated the dupe system, potential system. Have an awesome day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.